He can't. Aaron can't explain anything, and so all of you know, you're walking into a conversation. There has been some time travel shenanigans because when you listen to next week's, you're going to see that we were actually in the past. But this is Star Trek, so you all understand it. I don't think we have to explain much about it. But as I get to the introduction, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm Michael Dismuke. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG. Still have a tickle on my throat for 2 months. That's some sort of weird plague I need McCoy to help with. Anyways, I'm getting better slowly. I'm also a contributing blogger on Continuing Missions, which is the #1 fan site for Star Trek Adventures RPG. And now I want to introduce to you someone very special, a man who went and took a team of Star Trek Adventure creatives and was able, through his leadership and project management skills, be able to get the original series Utopia Planitia Starfleet supplement not only nominated, but get the Judges Award at the 2023 UK Games Expo. Jim Johnson.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. So it was a big, huge honor to be nominated. First of all, because there's some stiff competition in that category. But then we won Judges' Choice, and by the time this episode airs, we'll have found out who got the People's Choice Award, because I think the UKGE does a Judges' Choice and then also a People's Choice Award at the actual convention, which happened early June. So we'll see. But huge honor. Gosh, it was so much work to put that book together. A lot of cat herding. A lot of opportunities though too, because we were able to pull in a lot of names. I think having built that great relationship with Thomas Maroney over at Star Trek Online really upped our game. Because we were able, because like one of my big hopes for that book, not to digress, but we're going to be talking about starships tonight anyway. Mm-hmm. One of my big design, like my #1 design want list for that, my want list for that book was to make sure we had art for every single starship, and we made that happen. By and large, thanks to Thomas, because he has so many resources available to him, and he was able to dig into his Rolodex of people, and we were able to find some artists who were available to add some extra renders that we didn't have. That book came together really nicely. And Aaron, our guest tonight. Oh, first of all, I'm Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG, published by Modiphius Entertainment. Lo these many years. I am also the co-host of this here show with Michael. Lo these many 80-something episodes now, going on strong. Super happy to be here. Super excited to talk about this game and this franchise with you, all the fans that are out there, because Star Trek is a huge passion of mine for all my life, and I am just super humble and excited to be in this position to be able to create this cool stuff so that you can play games with your friends and your families and whatever.
And win awards, award-winning stuff. Make sure to add that award-winning stuff.
The award is a nice.
I'm taking fun. I'm really having fun embarrassing Jim. He's so modest that I'm gushing to the point of creating a tertiary temporal event, which you'll hear more about next week. But Aaron, can you explain that? Aaron Paulier, our guest, can you please explain what a tertiary temporal event is?
We could say it was like a recursive timeline that. There was like how would I describe it? A sawtooth snap that ends up recurring sequentially between 3 timelines. I don't know. I have weird paradox definitions in my head. So a sawtooth snap is kind of like one of those. It's sort of like a grandfather paradox that there's 2 separate timelines that tend to snap back between each other, but now you do 3 because there's 2 separate.
It looks like a hair braid. Looks like a hair braid. Like
sort of like that, or like a saw's teeth.
How it that makes total sense.
All right. I will add my humble contribution to all that technobabble is to grab the duct tape and slap a quantum in there somewhere. And just it's a quantum sawtooth entanglement ribbon.
Tertiary temporal event.
Tertiary temporal something. Blah blah blah.
And I understand. I completely.
Anyway, hey Aaron, how about you introduce yourself to the fans?
Hello, I'm Aaron Pellier. I am a long-term Star Trek Adventures contributor and freelance writer. I tend to do starship science, technology, shenanigans. Yeah, lots of things. But yeah, you've seen my work. I've even done a few adventures here and there. So,
yep. And Aaron is our resident starship expert. He's written pretty much every starship you've seen in the game from day one. So if you're looking for good starship lore, he's your man. And I tell you, some point we should do an episode just all about starships, starship riffing, where we take a random starship paragraph block from any one of our supplements, grab a sentence out of it, and just riff and do something amazing with that. Like make a ship or a space frame or something off that one sentence and just do amazing stuff with it. You've seen his work from the beginning. Like his stuff is in the core book all the way up to Utopia Planitia, Lower Decks, and here we are. So here we are talking about Lower Decks, Chapter 7, all about starships, star bases, and vehicles. It's kind of a clunky title. I couldn't come up with something better by the deadline, so I just went with it.
Well, I want to say, too, for those of you who think that, wow, there's so many starships, what Aaron does, too, since I'm in gush mood today, what Aaron does is he creates personalities with these starship space frames where they become more, and if you slow down and actually read through them, I can tell you right now, if it wasn't for Aaron, I would never have played a Malachowski class and I would never have played a Sydney class in my games. And I am in love with these ships. And maybe at first they don't catch the eye, but when you really dig into them and their history, they do. So I was so happy that you did Lower Decks Chapter 7. And now we're getting into these fantastic ships we're starting to see in animated form. Maybe one day we'll see a real live action California class. That would be cool. But until then, this is what we have, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can hope. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just add that Aaron's stuff is it's a blessing and a curse for me when I read it, because not in a negative sense, but just because I am kind of the forever GM, and to date I still have not found many opportunities to actually play this game. Like I've run it a lot, I've written it a lot, I've been project manager on it forever now, and I just have not had a lot of time to just sit down and just play the game. But what I do is when I'm editing these things and I'm reading these things and I'm getting all these ideas from all these different ship classes, it's just so inspiring, because it's like, oh, this write-up on the what's the one in the Discovery book, the medical ship, the Hiawatha. I could do a whole campaign on a Hiawatha doing medical relief during the war. That would be so cool. And I could get into all that. And then, reading about the like you said, Michael, the Malachowski's class. And
awesome. Or Sydney, which is a colonist transport. That one is just like so much you could do with it.
Oh, there's just so many classes, and you just add so many cool little details. And it's like, oh, I could go all over this. And it makes the fanfic writer in me happy, because it's like, if I had the time, I would just write a whole bunch of fanfic about all these starship classes. But I don't have time for that either, which is just a sad reality. But I just love how much cool stuff you're able to pack into all these starship write-ups. And I just hope that there are fans out there who are reading this stuff and like, oh, we're going to run this campaign. We don't even know what class of ship we want, because there's so many cool options, right? It's like, oh, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And like, there's so many, like the Star Trek tapestry is so big. And like all these classes do different things really well. And it's just like, oh, what kind of game do you want to run? What kind of game do you want to play? Do you want to do deep space exploration? Well, bing, 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 bing. Here's 6 classes that can do that.
Yeah.
You want to do core world, relief and recovery? Well, boom, there's a bunch of ships that'll do that. In fact, at some point, some fan needs to create some sort of matrix to say, like, here's 10 styles of play, and here's 6 space frames for each 10 styles of play, and like do this huge matrix of like mix and match, and like, okay, well, you want to play this kind of game? Here, think about these 6 classes of ships. And then just then go reference Aaron's write-up.
Yeah, and I have some questions about the write-ups too. So let's jump into it, because I actually want to talk about your thinking process behind some of these designs. I want to know whether it came all from you or whether you did some research through Alpha and Beta Canon and stuff. But why don't you go ahead and start and talk to us about, of course, the most popular ship from Lower Decks, and that's the California class.
Well, the California class was both the easiest and most difficult one to write because we see it on screen a whole bunch. So I have to make sure that I reference everything that has been referenced about Callies in the write-up. So that's the difficult part of it. The easy part of it is there's a ton of things that I can use as a jumping off point for the write-up that's already shown in the show. So we see them in a whole bunch of different colors. I try to reference this idea that those colors reference different specialties that the ships have. Since it's a California class, it suggests that they're all built in the solar system, and they're all named after places that are in California. So it's a human-built ship, even though there might be non-humans serving on board, or even a totally non-human crew. Let's just kind of make these a jumping off point. It's a jack of all trades ship that's there for support. So, let's give it engineering, let's give it science, let's give it medicine. It's meant to just be there to help. It's not there to lead fleets. It's not there to be a battle cruiser. It's meant to help.
Yeah,
to support every other ship.
And I love that you said it doesn't have to have a whole human crew. In fact, that makes me think that there would be cool if there was a California class ship called the Monterey Bay, and it was all cetacean.
Did I not reference that? I thought I might have.
Or even the Sausalito, the Sausalito, and it calls back to Star Trek 4, right? How cool would that be, right?
Yeah.
The Sausalito, all cetacean.
I think the only ships that I reference are Mojave, San Andreas, and Escons. Oh God, I can't even pronounce that name. You're going to have to look at that, Michael. I'm sorry.
I'm in California. I've never even heard of that city.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I only took places from California. I can't pronounce it though. I'm not gonna offend anyone by attempting to
look at. I thought it was Escondido on quick passing, but no, that's Escondido. No. Let me try Escolzia. I'm done. Okay, yeah.
Scolzia. Escoscolzia.
And then I do have a question about the design, because you have to explain this to me, because people have been talking about it. And when I look at the California class, you have the main, saucer section.
Yes.
How do I get from the saucer section to main engineering?
Turbo lift through the struts.
Those pylons. So if those struts get blown away, there's no getting to engineering.
If those struts get blown away, you have bigger problems than getting to engineering, because engineering's likely floating a couple AUs behind you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
now can they fly? Is it I can't remember. Does it have separation? It doesn't have separate.
Well, I wrote that the center engineering with the deflector and main engineering can be ejected entirely in case the warp core itself can't be ejected.
Okay.
And that would leave the main saucer with the warp nacelles that you could power from the ship's reactors, fusion reactors, to get very, very limited warp speed still.
All right. I just want to reiterate for all you Star Trek fans out here, these Star Trek Adventure RPG books are the new technical manual. Where else are you going to learn this stuff? Even if you don't play the RPG, just have it for the technical manual piece of it, right? And Aaron's is behind a lot of that concept. It's so awesome.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, be careful with that though, because you might open up a can of worms, because there is a whole subset of fans out there who want way more technical detail than this game was ever designed to provide. I mean, they want to go into the weeds on every technical aspect of the book. So these aren't really technical manuals like in the Franz Joseph sense, or the Stern Bakukuda TNG tech manual sense. It's
the best we have right now. It's the best we have right now that I know of.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining, because like as a role play focused gamer and game master, like this is exactly what I want. This is so much great detail and world building and like ship building and I don't want to disparage it by calling it fluff, but it's so good that it sparks my imagination in ways that numbers on a page in a technical manual just can't do it. Like looking at something saying, oh, this has 12 decks and does 72 blah 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 kilowatt power. Like, I don't care. What does that mean? What does that mean for the story? It doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
But
and I need to remember not to put in like specific numbers like that very often, because then that gets too far into the weeds.
Yeah.
But like the other thing I wanted to do with the California class is to make sure that at its base, it's a good support vessel. So it's going to have extensive shuttle bays. So it can move a lot of cargo and people around even when transporters aren't there, and then the dedicated personnel. And I didn't specify dedicated personnel, so it could be dedicated personnel medical, dedicated personnel science division, dedicated personnel, whatever. Like for the Cerritos, it's just operations.
Yeah.
So they have an amazingly large operations division.
Yeah. And of course, people could adapt this to like VIP quarters for certain things. They could always swap out talents. Like VIP quarters might make sense, but definitely a cool
why
ship.
not? Why not have dedicated personnel command? You could, and it could be like an internal ambassadorial ship moving between Federation worlds. For whatever reason, I don't know. It could be the late 24th century version of my Tellarite kitchen ship, going world to world and finding the worst foods possible to learn from them.
That's a real thing in our game.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, you even mentioned that the livery, the paint schemes on these ships, we see them in red and blue and gold, right? So it totally makes sense that your dedicated personnel might be geared toward whatever that ship's specialty is. Like you might have a diplomatic heavy Cali class ship doing second contacts and that kind of stuff, and then you might have a medical relief Cali out there doing emergency relief and support and plague maintenance and that kind of stuff, and it just reflects the delivery on the ship as well as the dedicated personnel. So I thought that was great touch, great addition. And for those we didn't quite mention it at the top, I should probably just mention in passing here. Those of you who are familiar with the Utopia Planitia, or actually, I guess the award-winning Utopia Planitia Starfleet source book, you'll know that the space frames in that book were presented like a lot of lore about the ship, a lot of great detail, and then a space frame stat block. And then we had Aaron write up and Thomas Maroney wrote up some of them too in the Utopia book. So we got the space frame, and then we got a notable starship for each one. So it's a 2-page spread for each starship class. So we continued that format into this book. So if you're familiar with Utopia Planitia, you'll be familiar with the look and feel in this one. So there's a continuity here. And it just so happened that we developed these two books back to back, right? So we went from Utopia Planitia right into Lower Decks, and it just worked out really well to keep that format going.
Cool.
Any other words on the Cerritos or the Cali class before we move on?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. Okay, I'll just go. I was seeing Michael wave me on. So the next class that we decided to add is admittedly a partial reprint from the command source book, and that was the Luna class. Initially, I had not planned to include this, but given how important the Titan was to the first couple of seasons of Lower Decks, I thought it appropriate to put it in here only because I couldn't assume that everybody's gone and bought the command source book. And I thought, well, if you're new to the game and you bought the core book and you want to get into Lower Decks, you might be kind of pissed off if you didn't get the Luna class and the Titan. So I had to kind of play with that a little bit. I'm kind of adverse to reprinting a lot of stuff wholesale in books as much as I can, because it's like I just don't think it's fair to the fans to just like regurgitate the same stuff over and over again. But in this case, I found that middle ground of like, well, they might not have bought the command source book, but they would buy this because it's the Titan and because it's Lower Decks. So I went ahead and put it in here.
Can you clarify something for me too that I want to understand? So we have the Luna here, which shows in Prodigy. I mean, sorry, in Lower Decks, but then we know we have the Titan show up in Picard season 2 and 3. Are there differences? Are those different space frames?
Well,
the
Titan that's in Picard in Picard's the Picard series is not a Luna class. It's Constitution 3 or Neo Constitution.
That's right. And is that the same? So the Neo Constitution that was in Picard season 3 is the same that was in Picard season 2?
No, I didn't think. Am I misremembering for the moment that Titan was in season 2?
Oh, I'm mixing up with the Stargazer. I'm thinking Stargazer.
Never Stargazer is completely different.
That's right. Yeah. So Titan comes back. It's a new space frame, Neo Constitution. Okay, good. So we have something to look forward to if we ever do a Picard season 3.
I was scared for a second. I was. Oh my God! Did Titan appear in season 2 of Picard? Have I completely lost my mind?
No. Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
There might have been a Luna class in there in the background or within all the different ships that were in the first part in the last part of season 2. But as far as I know, I don't think the Titan made an appearance herself. So I think the Titan, on screen anyway, we've only seen it in Lower Decks. It's certainly been in the Titan series of novels. Sean Torngo won the design contest way back when Simon Schuster ran the design contest back in the early 2000s, I think. He designed it initially, and then they just carried it forward. So Aaron, I don't remember if we did a whole lot of rewriting here. I think you did some tweaks to the command source book Luna write up and then pulled it in here as opposed to just being a straight cut and paste.
I tweaked it. I tweaked it a little bit, but I don't remember exactly what I did.
Yeah, and you brought the numbers in line with Utopia Planitia.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
And when if nothing else, we did a clean edit pass on it, so it should be clean and tidy. But those of you who are fans of the Luna class, myself included, my long running STA game was on a Luna class, the Galatea. So we got the Luna in here, and then of course the Titan is the notable ship that we included in here because of course we would, because that's the one that was in the show. Yes. Anything else you'd like to mention about the Titan class before we move on?
No. It's if you have the command source book, if you have Utopia Planitia, you kind of know what's going on with Luna class. Yeah.
Great ship. Great, versatile space frame.
Yes.
You can do a lot of stuff with this. So I had a lot of fun running it as a game master. And I know that I've seen a handful of groups out there using the Luna as their hero ship. It's a, in my opinion, a worthy addition to the canon of space frames. Of course, there's so many now, but a really solid late next gen era post Borg kind of post Dominion War kind of thing. So have fun with it if you want to. All right, moving on. We got the Osler class.
I'm so happy this one got in here, by the way.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
This is the Section 14 ship that we see.
Division 14.
Division 14. Right. I have Section 14 some places, but the Osler is a part of a idea that I had with California. Oh, what?
Nope, just making a note to myself that's a typo that I will need to fix at some point.
Oops. Yes, we all make mistakes. Yeah. Osler is, I had this idea that if California class was primarily human and made in the solar system, that some of these more strange classes that we see either in the background or somehow get featured right away are going to be made by other Federation member worlds. So Osler, since it looks so aggressive and angular and all that, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be interesting if I made this an Andorian built ship?
That was so cool. I love that you did that.
And so I really tried to describe it as like, okay, it's built at the Imperial Fleet Yards and a different shipyard that's an Andorian. Like I call it Ringgate Nadir. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. I think that's just that name probably can set off a few stories that you might be able to write. But I made it this aggressive looking ship. It has bonuses to con, security, and engineering, but it's used because it's used for Division 14 because it does look so intimidating, and no one wants to mess with it because, hey, you don't want to have people messing with a ship filled with medical emergencies people that you're trying to help.
Yeah. What was your reasoning? Yeah. But what was your reasoning that you didn't put medicine higher? I mean, I honestly feel that now that we've seen the show, I did the write-up for Division 14. I would think that these are some of the brightest medical minds in the quadrant, and the ship only has medicine 3.
It doesn't have a bonus to medicine. Do we see them ever treating the people on board? They're literally just shoved into a bay.
Okay. You gave some thought. Okay. I agree.
Right. So it's quick. Like the notable starship is USS Osler, and it's a crisis and emergency response vessel. So yes, it does have medicine 3, but it's there. It has improved warp drive. It does have an advanced sick bay in case like somebody is really dying, but it's there to move people to your Endoconemus 5 for treatment very quickly.
And that outpost is probably Medical 5 and Science 4 and all that good stuff. Okay, exactly. see, people, Aaron thinks about it. I try to catch him all the time, but he always has reasoning behind it.
If you look at that, if you look at Osler, does it look like a medical ship?
No, not really.
It looks like a dagger flying through space. It looks like it's supposed to be intimidating.
I mean, again, this is my second favorite episode of Lower Decks because when it showed up, it just permeated evil, and yet it's not. It's a benevolent ship, and I just love how they did that twist in the episode.
And even the captain of the vessel is just oozing menace and evil, and it's lit dark, it's all darkly lit and all angular even inside, so you think, boy, this thing is just oozing menace. And maybe the ship overall actually was really designed for that purpose, but it's just being USS Osler itself is going to be used for medical transport.
Great write-up on that one.
That's the power of humor and subverting expectations, right? You present one thing, and then you do the 180, and hopefully your players are surprised, and your viewers are surprised, and all that stuff. So great stuff, and yes, in full transparency, there are exactly 3 references to Section 14 in this book, and they're only on these 2 pages. So.
But it's not your fault, and let me tell you why.
Well, it
was a tertiary temporal divergent field that has been plaguing us. So it just came in from the other universe where it is called Section 14, honestly.
Yeah, that was the parallel Aaron that wrote that. I apologize. I apologize for him.
Bizarro Aaron.
Well, he's the Aaron with no facial hair. It's from the Mirror universe.
Mirror. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the Obina.
Obinas. Okay, so Obinas I thought were really cool because they look like Excelsior ships, and I love Excelsior. And so, I wanted to make this a ship that was fast, kind of a replacement for Excelsiors that were slowly getting pretty darn old. At this point, Excelsiors were around for about 100 years. So let's make an Excelsior-like vessel that uses quantum slipstream drive. And of course, since it has an amazing propulsion drive, it has to be built by primarily Yoyodyne Propulsion Systems of Proxima. And I love the design of Excelsior, so I loved kind of writing this up about it truly being another experiment in strange advanced propulsion. And that was the general idea behind it. So of course it has huge fusion reactors to help power the ship, and extra reactors, I should say, and then an improved warp drive even outside of quantum slipstream, so it can just cruise around really, really quickly. And by the way, the notable starship is USS Archimedes.
Makes sense.
Captain Gomez's ship, great stuff. And I love the fact that it looks a lot like the Excelsior. And I love the idea that it's just another late next gen era ship that you can just throw into your game and do something unique and different. If you're tired of the Galaxy classes and the Intrepids and the Akiras, and you want to just kind of grab a ship that not a lot of people have seen and make your own campaign around it. Nothing wrong with an Obina. Like it's absolutely worth using for multi-purpose, multi-role explorer, Pathfinder surveys, etc. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff you can do with this because it's just so much fun to think about. So, Michael, do you have anything to add on the Obina? Or
no, I'm just happy that Sonia Gomez is a captain of one. That's really awesome. I love Sonia Gomez.
Yeah.
They don't allow her to take coffee on the bridge, though, even though she's the captain, though, I heard.
Well, we could get into the whole carpet conversation. Maybe the Archimedes has like a special
grading. It has grading. She doesn't even get carpet. Go straight down.
I was thinking grading is funny. I was thinking it would have like some sort of carpet that's made out of super absorbent fabric or something that is auto wicking, right? So you spill on it and then it gradually evaporates itself. I don't know. We could go on. All right, let's go on to the Parliament class.
Okay, so the Parliament, I kind of came up with this idea that there would be two branches of thought in Starfleet. One kind of going towards this idea of pod-based starships like Luna and Nebulas, being that those were just incredibly adaptive and to different mission profiles. But then another line of thought of, hey, let's just make really adaptable space frames, but without pods. The pods might just require too much equipment on board that has to be like plug and play, and it might require all these different updates and constant connections. I don't know. And the pods might not be very accessible. So Parliament represents that idea of making just a generally more adaptable ship and not relying on pods. So Parliament starships, have their big saucer, just like most Federation starships, but also have an underslung secondary hull like Nebulas. They have the kind of underslung nacelles like Nebulas and the Reliant and things like that. So I gave these ships improved hull integrity, because I like that compact design tends to make me think of a more rugged starship. Maybe not rugged design, but it's just stronger. It's able to maintain its structural integrity fields in a much more compact area. An improved impulse drive, because we see the thing have, when we see Parliament class starships, we see them with large impulse manifolds glowing. And to me, whenever I see really large impulse manifolds glowing, I also see a lot of secondary reactors that give it a lot of extra power.
Now, I heard the improved hull integrity included like a subspace force field that also kind of kept all the smells inside, and it became known as Parliament Funk. Is that true?
No.
Okay. I don't know where I heard that.
Smells travel faster than light anyway. So
it may have been on Memory Beta. I may have read that on Memory Beta. I think.
So I also made this one of those starships that, while it's primarily human, it isn't all human. It's also made by like the Vega colony, which is mostly human, but also Tellar. And the Tellarites name their ships differently in this case because they use political terms, whereas the human-built starships tend to use political division terms. So, like Baja, I have written down here, Sea of Tranquility, where the Tellarites are like Quorum, Parliament, things like that.
That's funny. Very good. I was happy to see a Vulcan ship in here. In fact, I feel that I honestly think that it's competing. This is the next ship we're talking about, the Tekalat. I'm going to pronounce it like Tekalat. That Lower Decks is competing with Enterprise when it comes to screen time for Vulcan ships. I feel like Lower Decks is taking them out now.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we do see a Vulcan ship in Prodigy, but that's only very briefly.
Yeah, but I actually really like Vulcan ships. When I see them, whether it's the fighter level or whether it's the big one, they're designed. They don't get enough screen time, in my opinion, Vulcan ships.
Yeah. And they tend to look the same, which I even reference in the write-up here. Like Vulcan ships tend to not change because it's a design that works, so logically we shouldn't change it.
Exactly. That just makes sense to me too. But we see Romulans all day and we see Klingon birds of prey. We see Ferengi ships so much. But I really love the design of Vulcan ships. So I like how you did. And the size of the one, of course, that shows up in Lower Decks is just immense.
Yeah, but the ones that show up in Enterprise are also fairly large compared to NX-01. So it didn't surprise me to see such a large Vulcan ship. Hey, okay, they build them big. You want to have a whole bunch of Vulcans together. They tend to be kind of off on their own anyway. And I don't know, it made sense. I tend to explain the ring warp as being something that can maintain a very fast warp speed for low power usage, but it has difficulty maneuvering at warp. So there is like a reason why there's ring warp ships. You get fast speed, low power usage, but if you really need to move or you're going through like rough space time, it might not be the best. So that's why there is that kind of choice to just keep these ships. Hey, we know where we're going. We're not going anywhere special. Our sensors are good, well tuned enough that we can see really far and see any rough space coming up. So we can just sort of slowly turn and avoid it. I don't know. Just an idea. Just an idea for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. I think one of the things I appreciate about the Luna, the Parliament, the Obina, and the Tekalat is, they're all new space frames for the most part in Lower Decks. And if you think about Lower Decks as a continuation of the Next Generation, and then you think of like the overall tone of the series, going from Next Gen, not so much the movies, but the Next Gen into Lower Decks. There's really kind of more of a post-war, hopeful, let's get back to exploring kind of vibe. Where we're going to be doing the Starfleet thing before it starts getting dark and we get into Picard and like things fall off the wagon and Mars gets whacked and then we get the Borg and all that other stuff that are happening. But depending on as a game master and a group of players, like depending on how you want to treat canon, you might choose to go with like the late Next Gen era, Lower Decks, and these classes of ships and go, maybe Picard. Not to be negative about Picard, but maybe you just decide, what, the events of Picard don't happen or haven't happened, and we're going to kind of just go on our own tangent here, and we're going to do some deep space exploration with the Parliament class, and things are happening in the Alpha Quadrant with everything that's going on with Picard, and that's fine. But we're out here, pushing the edge of the envelope, pushing the frontier, doing all this cool exploration, sciencey stuff on a Parliament class or an Obina or a Luna, whatever. I like that tone of Lower Decks. And late Next Gen, and I think these write-ups that you did for these different starships really just kind of fit right into that. So it's more colorful, it's more fun, it's more not quite Strange New Worldsy, but it just gets back to that exciting part of Star Trek that really excites me. And it's not so much the really heavy stuff that we get in Picard. Not to say that that's bad necessarily. It's just not quite what I wanted. And then like Lower Decks is hitting me in a different level. And I think these space frames really tie into that because it gives me personally, like, gives me lots of ideas. Like, oh, if I want to go explore the, parts of the Beta Quadrant that had never been explored before, the Parliament or the Obina are the ships that I want to use or something like that. So I appreciate that this is just giving game masters and players even more tools to play with, to think about how do we want to run our game? Where do we want to run our game in the timeline? And then what kind of tone you want to throw into that? Because the ship that you pick for your game ties right into all that. Because again, we talked about it a number of times that the ship is an important character in your campaign, and this gives you 4 more like almost like life paths, right? We present new life paths in the book in chapter 5, I think, and now we've got a bunch of new space frames for you to pick. So these are the life paths for your ship. Michael, it looks like you're going to add something.
No, I was looking at some of the other ships. I was looking forward to it. No, to that point. No, because there's just so many to select from. In here, like I thought, Utopia Planitia, of course, is amazing because there's just some. But having all these to add, and just even you could be Federation and not be on the standard looking type of ship now. That you could be a Federation Vulcan ship or the Andorian made ship. It's like, why not? Like, and what are the personalities in those ships? That's what I was thinking about, Jim.
Yeah, the last one like that is the Ganasha. And that's by combination Andorian Tellarite ship that they tried to design together and failed to come to a proper agreement on exactly what its mission should be. But you see them, well, I mean, of course, because the Tellarites are always right. Well, maybe, but you see these ships in a couple shots where in season 1, where you see a couple of them docked, I think it's at Douglas Station.
Yeah.
And they look completely different. Like 2 of them look completely different because one has like big fins on it and the other one's just kind of plain, but they resemble the old Andorian cruisers from Enterprise. So I thought, okay,
I love those ships too. Oh, those I loved Andorians and Enterprise are the best. I mean, so that was just really good to see that.
Yeah, they designed this ship together and didn't really come to a good conclusion. So it's a fairly heavily armed ship, but it's not a battle cruiser. It just has a lot of weapons. So like the Tellarite ones tend to focus on being a multi-role explorer, whereas the Andorian ones tend to be like these gunships that are patrolling the Federation borders. I think that's interesting. I don't know if we want to go into that any further before we move on to other ones. I just thought I needed to have mention those ships because they are in the background, but since they do appear and jump out at you if you're a fan of Enterprise, come on, they have to be in this book, right?
Yeah. No, I think I appreciate them being in here because they represent some of the diversity of the Federation that we honestly just don't see enough of on screen, right? Like not every Federation ship has to be a saucer and nacelles, right? Shoot me, but that's just where it is. And I know some of the later designs from certain designers, kind of get away from that. Like the Defiant is certainly atypical because it doesn't really have a saucer. It does have the nacelles, but they're all compact inside the body. And so I think the Ganassia is just a cool design, and it's just different. And honestly, just listening to you talk about the Andorian and the Tellarite engineers having to figure out how are we going to design this thing, like, shoot, that's a campaign in and of itself, right? Okay, you're either an Andorian engineer or a Tellarite engineer, and you're coming together as part of the Federation, and like we're gonna co-design a new ship, a new space frame. What's this going to look like? And like, how did that conversation come to happen? And like, what was that whole design process looking like? And I think there's all kinds of fun you can have with that as they go through mutations.
I love I shouldn't say I love, but I like what I wrote here where it says, I say that the frame was considered a thing of beauty by the Andorians in an inefficient but barely acceptable form by the Tellarites. Like, of course, they're going to insult what the Andorians think is beautiful, but they're going to use it just because it's barely acceptable. And then we go into the notable Federation starships that just kind of sit by themselves. But I kind of want to jump to the USS Macduff, because that's in one of the best holodeck episodes where Mariner has to escape from being captured. Okay, and I thought, well, let's say that this whole holodeck adventure is based on real events that take place during the Dominion War. What were those real events that USS Macduff, NCC 1877, had to go through? What led to this ship being captured and being there? I don't know. I liked that. And since it is like a Dominion War-esque Miranda class, it's kind of scary because Miranda's being upgraded throughout the years with their refits, and then being refit for fighting in the Dominion War. It makes them kind of terrifying. I don't know, for being things that were built in like the late 23rd century. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, good stuff. And then we got the classic Vulcan Warp Shuttle. We even dropped in the Douglas type station and the Watchtower class starbase. Anything you want to add on the two new starbase designs?
I have a question. I have a question too on one of them too. Just so I'm clear, the Watchtower class station, that's different than a Starbase 25, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Watchtower class station, is that pulled from Beta Canon?
No. It's actually in the series. It's mentioned a couple times that there's Watchtower base or something like that.
Okay. All right.
It's just a smaller starbase, a slightly smaller starbase than like what you would see for Earth Dock or a Douglas type station. A Douglas type station is basically old Earth space dock. Effectively, Watchtowers are just slightly smaller.
Okay, and so we don't have a Starbase 25 right up in this one?
No.
Okay, got it. Because that's where you saw the two ships that you were talking about, the Ganassia style ships were parked there. Yeah. So I was wondering that because that's a crazy looking space station too.
I'm pretty sure that's a Douglas type.
Okay. Got it.
So it just fits in there. I didn't want to like detail out every single starbase that we saw, just kind of like putting in broad general categories and then you tweak things.
No, Aaron, you did want to detail every starbase we saw. There's just not enough room to do.
Well, if I looked at my early drafts, I'm sure I did. But
exactly,
word counts being that what they are.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we get into Jim's favorite section, the Pakled starships, right?
Yes.
Should I talk about like that there are construction rules in here for Pakled?
Yeah, definitely go for it.
But it's at the end, and it's basically that you choose a scale, and it's sort of like the Frankenstein fleet, whereas you clump together a whole bunch of different starships, and I don't know, it's actually their systems and departments are based on their size, but you can't get them much bigger, and they aren't as effective as an equivalent starship from like Starfleet. But that doesn't mean that they aren't effective with what they do. Like they're just not as oomphy.
Well, I love the picture, the illustration on page 165 under your clump ship construction inset box, where it has that diagram of how it's put together. It's so cool. It's like Legos or something. And there's parts that are unknown. So to think that the Packlids, we know they were rife through the Gamma Quadrant, that they're picking up technology from species the Federation hasn't even met or identified is story gold. Is just there. And they even said they had some Borg components too, I think, in one of the episodes, right? So yeah, a really great illustration to match that Frankenstein fleet concept.
Yes. And there's lots of so we start with like the Pakled Battle Harpy, it's just kind of a small fighter. And we see that in a few episodes. And then, I thought, okay, well, what are we going to name these ships? And I thought, well, the Packlids are just going to name their ships in a very descriptive, simple way. So we have the Sneaky Clump, the Searchy Clump, Enterprise Clump. And you can assume what the Enterprise Clump does. It acts like the Enterprise. The Toei Clump, Big Hat Clump, because Big Hat's lead. And then you have your Killer Clump, which is your Big Hammer. Right.
Yeah.
And there's lots of little funny references, but I mean, it's not all just comedy. I try to actually put like serious reasons why these ships were built. But I am sure that you can find at least one very funny reference to something in each one of these write-ups. And I will spoil a little bit, but there is a direct reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail in one of these.
Excellent.
I don't know if you have ever figured it out or not.
I'm gonna have to go back and read it again.
I'll have to go back and read it as well.
Well, it's that when they designed one of their ships, it had a lot of warp nacelles to go very, very fast, and the first one turned its entire crew inside out. The second one, when it returned, all it had were giant salamander-looking things on it. And the third one worked. Michael's just like kind of clicking what the hell that means.
Well, I know the second one. I get the Voyager reference.
Yeah. The third one, it's the castle falling down, man. The castle.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and watch again. That's like 15 years.
The third one stayed standing. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go watch it one more time.
Stayed up. Yep.
Got it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm the one that knows all the Holy Grail references, I guess. I'm straight.
I know all the I know all the words to Star Trek Undiscovered Country, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Mannequin. Just stick with that, and Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay. I'm with you. Mannequin, good movie. Good movie. All right. Anyway,
so and the hits keep coming. So we cover the Federation, the Klingons, the Packlids, and then we get into some of the wide variety of other polity starships that appeared throughout Lower Decks. And gosh, again, there's a lot of them. They managed to pack a lot of stuff into these episodes, and we've got Galrakian crystal ships. We've got the boarding shuttle, which was in that one episode where they're cutting their way into the hulls. And my personal favorite, honestly, I want to skip to this a little bit and just talk about the Monaveen.
The Monaveen.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. It was such a great, the whole Ren Fair thing was a total kick to me. And the poem that you wrote to accompany the write-up at the sidebar, I was like, that was inspired. And I fought really hard to make sure we found a place to keep it in. And fortunately, we were able to make a design thing work with it to get it in there. And also importantly is that Paramount approved it and let us keep it in there. So that was a big thing, is that we could do that.
And I have to ask, was it in the show, the type of ship? Was that in the show, or did you make that up?
Just Monaveen?
No,
Monaveen's its name.
No, it being a twerk type vessel. It's twerk type. Page
no,
169.
you're looking. That is a separate ship. It's just that the art for Monaveen is on that page.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, oh my Lord, did I? Okay, no.
You're right. That confused me. That's good. Okay, you're right. That's
so. Yeah, I spent.
That's click. Darn, that would have been so cool.
No, a twerk type ship. No, I spent way too much time writing Monaveen and that poem. And thank you for editing that poem, because I am not a person that can write in iambic pentameter very well. I am not skilled in that. But I tried to also explain that, neither are the Hyperions. They are Hesperians. They are not skilled at iambic pentameter. In fact, they misuse terms all the time, and the universal translator tends to not be able to figure out what the hell they're saying.
I would figure that they're more into Irish limericks.
Probably. So I tried to actually change names for the different systems. So you'll see that instead of phasers, they have Holy Light Most Glorious, and their photon torpedoes are actually magic missiles. Because that the gemstones in their ceremonial rings are D20s. Yeah, Armor of Shimmering Samite. There's another Holy Grail reference.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Her middle most thick. Come on. With improper vowel usage. Okay, so let's. I don't know. I like the write up. I had fun writing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I think the talent description, the talent renamings were inspired. And obviously we had to keep in the parentheses just to make sure people understood the reference. But baths and brothels and throne room, I was like, oh, this totally makes sense to me. Those are great.
Yeah,
I love this one.
Yeah, people should be doing this. They should be changed. Even if you keep a talent, change the name of it to make it distinct to the character and add personality. We've talked about that before. Do the same with ships. So I really love that you did that, Aaron.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan put that in the core book from 7 years ago, way back at the very beginning. There's a note. I mean, it's probably buried in the text, and people probably missed it. But he encourages people: look, if you are creating a character or a ship, and just the simple title of the talent doesn't fit your vision, just change the title. It's not going to hurt anything. You might have to tell your other players this is what it means. But be willing to get flexible with this and have fun with it. It's not like you're hidebound, beholden to every word that's in the book. Like if it doesn't work for you, then change it. We're not going to come to your house. We are too busy making the next book to come to your house and tell you you're playing it wrong. So just you get creative, have fun with it.
So then we have twerk ships from the Clickets. Those are there. And we have a Burrell class that we see pop up, Drukmani transports. We have that. And then we have a section of ground vehicles, which I think is the first time we actually have put ground vehicles in. And I mentioned that, hey, you just basically use shuttlecraft and shuttle pods as the base of construction. This is how you make these things. So we have the Hydroscoot, which I don't know that's in the episode where they're actually on the holodeck for that part. Yep. Yeah. Galrakian hover cycle that we see again with like the crystal stuff, and Argo. The Argo's listed in here.
These are fun. Now our ship has to have some of these land-based vehicles. We're gonna have to find a place to park them.
Oh yeah,
but really cool.
We're in 2385, so we could easily have a vehicle replicator down in the shuttle bay.
Oh, there you go.
Major.
Transit buggy. That's the last one. And the transit buggy we see a few times, but I tend to remember it tearing around a starbase. So yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah. I don't remember it. I'd have to reread the description. I think it might have been a missed opportunity if we didn't get some sort of Blues Brothers reference into it. Because that's what I was thinking about when they were driving the buggy through the starbase and crashing through kiosks and stuff.
Oh, like lots of room.
I was totally vibing off the Blues Brothers, and I don't remember if we snuck in a reference to it or not. But boy, we should have if we didn't.
yeah. There's lots of room in this starbase.
Yeah,
it has everything. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was a really nice. I was really glad we had the room to fit in some ground vehicles. I know a few people have been asking for 7 years now, we really haven't gotten any of the ground vehicles into any of our books. There aren't really that many ground vehicles in Star Trek. We've seen references to a couple. I mean, the Argo being the big example, but I guess the lower decks especially had a few different kind of ground vehicles, or at least hover vehicles. Mm-hmm. I think DS9 referenced in the Siege of AR 558 or whatever, they reference military skimmers kind of thing, but you don't see them on screen. You just have to infer that they're being used. So yeah, I was glad to add that to this book, partly because I don't think a lot of people are expecting it, which is nice. It's nice to surprise people. But it just, again, more tools for you to play with and use. And we see it in it was Nemesis, right? The Argo appears in Nemesis.
Yes, in Nemesis. There's ground vehicles in the 2009 Star Trek movie as well. But
right, yeah.
I'll make a 20th century sports car at some point if we ever get the rights for that.
There's horses in Strange New Worlds.
There are, yes. And actually, now that you mentioned that, Michael, I'm not sure we've actually statted up horses yet.
or mounts, how to mount animals, like mounted animals.
We've seen it. We've seen that in the movies in the Kelvin timeline too. Aaron, you again never cease to amaze with your ability to give each one of these ships, ground vehicles, star bases its own personality. Remember, everyone watching this, your ship is a character, and it's these details that make it rich. And really, again, Lower Decks added more. The ships are flying off the shelf there, so keep your eyes open, because I'm sure we'll see more write-ups of the goodies we see from there. Good job, Aaron.
Well, thank you. I'm happy that I could actually provide these and hopefully give people ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff as always. So thank you. All right. So that wraps up chapter 7 of this Lower Decks campaign guide. I hope you all are enjoying the series. We got 2 more chapters to go, and then we'll be wrapping it up here and moving on to the next thing. So let's wrap this one up. And Michael, why don't you kick us off with some gratitude?
All right. I put the call out last week for people to just give some, ideas about what people love most about STA. I'll shout out a couple of them. One of our, of course, freelance writers and contributors to this show, Al Spader, he made a comment, which I love. He says, "I truly believe that STA is responsible for pulling me out of a deep depression once COVID hit." So I love hearing that. What gratitude. And I agree with that. I mean, it was a lifesaver for me too. Jim Ward, I like what he says. He says, "The game is great, but the living support system, including continuing new publications and supplements, is far beyond any other game system I've seen. Add in the ability to contact and give input and feedback to the people making the game, just far beyond expectations. Kudos to everyone involved." There's some good feels. That's our gratitude.
I'm going to have to, Al, boy, I didn't know that. I guess I didn't hear that. I'm with you, man. If it wasn't for STA, the other writers, Jim, the players in our group, when COVID hit, boy, that would have been a lot more lonely, a lot, I wouldn't have had the people around me giving me support and love, all that. Thank you. That's very true, Al. I'm just going to second. I'm going to second Al on this one, because it is true. Like, we as a community, STA, Star Trek, it's all about coming together, being supportive of each other. Together we're better. We're better together than apart, and supporting each other has always been something our community does. So thank you.
COVID was a long 2 to 3 year mission, and we were all on the same ship together, which made it endurable.
Starship Earth, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't think that was where we were going, but I think thank you, Al, and thank you, Aaron, for those notes. I think I've talked about it on and off and on some of these shows that like, for me personally, the world really sucked, like starting around 2016, right? And it was grim for me personally. And then on top of that, we had COVID, right? So it was like a lot of political stuff going on, and then the world, and then everything else was happening, and then COVID hit on top of all that stuff. And somewhere in there, in that whole haze of all that, my dad passed away and then friends passed away because of COVID, and you couldn't go to the funerals, and it's like, oh, it's just a horrible stuff, one thing after another, and throughout all of that, I was working on Star Trek Adventures, and that was well and truly my lifeline for a long time. And I just worked my way through, and it got to be, I became project manager like right before COVID, pretty much, and that gave me something to really focus on. That, I mean, honestly, I think it saved my life more than once, and I was able to find friendships with all of you and the fans through Star Trek Adventures. And I also, as an editor, I discovered that I really enjoyed editing. And I really enjoyed giving other people opportunities to get into this, right? And to write and to do art and to do stuff and to get involved in the game on a different level than just being a fan. Like, I was able to pull in a lot of fans to actually write for me, and they're really good, and that's why I keep coming back to them. But I think these last 7 years have been challenging in a number of different ways for me, and I've got such a backlist of Star Trek Adventure stuff I can look back on now and say, wow. Even with all that stuff that was going on in the world and in the meta and in my life and just in general, we still have this amazing, body of work that we've been able to put together, and there's still more coming. And I'm just so excited because we get to share all that with the fans who are vibing off of this stuff too and are really enjoying it. And so thanks to all of you, Aaron, Michael, Al, Troy, Fred. I mean, all of like every freelancer, there's so many now, I can't name them all in one go. It would take me some time to pull the list together, but the freelancer, the writers, the editors, the proofreaders, the designers, the artists, everybody who's working, everybody at Modiphius who's been, keeping Star Trek going and like willing to keep it going. Obviously, in Paramount, everybody at Paramount for believing in the work that we're doing and appreciating the work we're doing and like giving us the Lower Deck license to play with. And say, here, we like what you're doing with all the Legacy series. Take Lower Decks and Picard and Discovery. Go see what you can do with it. And hopefully this book lives up to it. So thanks to all those people involved in the game. And then again, I can't say it enough. Thanks to the fans, because at some point during the pandemic, I made a turn in my brain to realizing that we were really doing this for the fans, not so much for us, for our own aggrandizement and our own benefit, but really for the fans, because we're building a new game system, right? We're building this whole new legacy of RPGs that are on the shoulders of Decipher and Last Unicorn Games and FASA and everything else. Now we're the next generation of RPGs. Some other generation will come after us at some point, but I think, Michael, you've mentioned a couple of times that the next generation of Star Trek writers, whether they're novelists or comic book writers or maybe TV or movies or whatever, maybe they'll look at our stuff and pull some ideas out of there, just like they pulled ideas out of the FASA stuff and the Last Unicorn Game stuff and the Decipher stuff. I don't presume to know that they will do that, but this is a hell of an impressive body of work that we put together over the last 7 years.
It's an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia level of information.
So and like when this game finally goes to pasture, knock on wood that it's not for a long time yet, as a game master, like I have more material than I could possibly ever use in my lifetime as a game master. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be running Star Trek Adventures for the rest of my life, and I am set with material, right? Even though we've got more to come, and the sky's the limit at this point. But there's just so much cool stuff here that I just haven't had time to go back and reread because I'm working on the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. But every now and then, I'll tell you, every now and then I have a down moment or a quiet moment at work or during the day. And because I've got all my books right next to my workspace, I'll just grab a random book off the shelf and just flip through it and go like, oh shit, oh yeah.
I do the same thing.
I start riffing in my brain. It's like, oh, I could go here and I could go there and I could go there, and I just need the time to write all this stuff down. But anyway, all
right. I think our limitation isn't ideas; it's time. That's really what it is. Yeah.
So you gotta try to live forever. I'm still working on that.
Yeah, right. And I'll tell you, Aaron, that is the power of the Star Trek franchise. Now that it's 57 years old or whatever, the tapestry is so huge, and there's so many places that are still unexplored. That with all these tools, and not just from us, but from the comic books and the novels and all the different 1,000 episodes that are out there, Like there are so many, like as a role player, like we have an embarrassment of riches to play with. And like you could tell all kinds of Star Trek stories, and we're just adding our own humble contribution to that. So hopefully,
you know what you make me want to do, Jim, too. This is going to be its own conversation at one point, because I know we're wrapping up, but
I know.
I feel like I should start a company that does vacations. Like you go rent like a cabin somewhere that's comfortable, has like 4 rooms, and you bring together people who want to RPG for a week so that we can get through as many modules as possible.
Yeah,
that would be an amazing vacation getaway. You can go just jet skiing a little bit, barbecue, but then like at least a good solid 8 hours of RPG a day for like 5 days straight. How cool would that be as a vacation getaway?
That would be fantastic. And in fact, it's funny that you mentioned that, Michael. And look, I know we're wrapping up, but this is a long digression, and I apologize a little bit. But my family and I went on a family retreat this past weekend just to get away, just to unplug, just to have some connection time with other families and get away. And it was at a campsite, and I swear to you, when we walked into the cabin and saw the common room and the screen porch, and then the section behind the cabin that was like several picnic tables in a circle around a campfire, I was like, the very first thing I thought of was this would be a fantastic retreat center for a gaming group to go to and just game all weekend long.
See?
And it was like in that circle around the bonfire. That would be perfect for some Star Trek adventures.
Yeah, and then I mean, you can even get it. There's places I've gone to before where you go and they even have like a cook. Like you can ask for an additional service to come in. I would still be like, okay, this is part of the thing too. If someone cooks for us the whole time, oh my goodness.
Oh, right. We got to make it happen. We'll like if we can find something like that in Ticonderoga, New York, we'll have to do like a Star Trek Adventures summit. Go to the original series tour, the next gen tour in Ticonderoga, and then go to this cabin or whatever and just spend the whole weekend gaming.
I just named the business too. RP Getaways. Can you see it? RP Getaways, trademarked. Okay, anyways. All right, anyways.
Anyway, so that was a long goodbye. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for Michael, thanks to you. Aaron, thanks to you.
Thank you.
For being here. Live long and prosper. Be safe.
IDIC.
Well,
okay,
IDIC.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you all next time. Thanks.
Until next time. Bye-bye.